So what is happening is our message of faith-based entrepreneurship, message of love, hope, and peace has been spreading. And I'm thankful to the IBA Dean and Executive Directors. So the center is collaborating with various, you can see the map on the picture on the screen. Abdullah, can you see the picture?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, yes, sir, your screen is there, your screen is visible.
So Miles, you can see that we have collaboration with partners around the country. And the content which we developed, which is based on effectuation, which is based on faith-based entrepreneurship, and which is based on indigenous practices, which is based on good learnings from faith, whether Islam, Christian, wherever. So it is helping a lot of people, and we are doing we are engaged in entrepreneurship teaching, faculty development, and entrepreneurship research. So last month was a very good month. We had our paper published in an impact factor paper. So one of our paper of disseminating the entrepreneurial mindset, it got accepted in the Journal of Technology Transfer, and which is a very high impact factor paper. And Sarfaraz Mia, you remember, is my co-author. So it was a very, I think, good news for us. We have been doing some research, incubation. We have developed a lot of incubation. In the meanwhile, co-curricular activities are taking place. We started a new program called Mother Entrepreneurship. And many women in Pakistan, they don't do a job, but raising kids and helping their family members and helping their spouse is also entrepreneurship. So it is the inspiration from Sarah, inspiration from the wife of Ismail, the mother of Ismail alayhi salam. The Hajra model, the Khadija model, the Sarah bint Mazaham model, the Maryam bint Imran model. So that was something interesting which we started, the Mother's Entrepreneurship model. And that is, it's happening. And so this is a quick picture of our Women Entrepreneurship program as they graduated. And this is our, you remember, you were here.
Yes.
On this day, you were here when I'm sorry, your picture is not there, but you were here as a key speaker. You talked online from United States.
Yes.
It was a few years ago. Our international summer school is going well as well. We have a lot of people coming in to learn our model. And that is, so recently in this coronavirus challenge, our team members said that why don't we start an online program for the whole world? Because our content is unique and the storytelling model is unique. So last month we started an online program on the model of edX. And we developed an LMS, we developed the content and videos. And this course was advertised, like 4,000 plus people registered. So this is the places from the countries from where the people have registered. So your message today will, inshallah, go to from North America to Africa to Somalia to Europe to Middle East and Australia, inshallah. From within the country, Pakistan, you can see that there's no population here in this part of Balochistan. So that is a deserted area, mountains and deserts. So these are all, these indications are showing people who have registered for this course. So alhamdulillah, it's a great opportunity to spread entrepreneurship. Yes. And we appreciate your contribution. And I will be just handing over to you after a few. This is a verse from our national poet, Dr. Iqbal. Dr. Iqbal did his PhD from Germany. He is the founding father of the country along with Muhammad Ali Jinnah, rahmahullah alayh. And he said this verse in Urdu, and I will translate in English. He said, Jahan taza ki afkar taza se hai namood, ke sango khisht se hote nahi jahan paida. So Iqbal said that a new world is developed with fresh thoughts. You need innovation in your thoughts and in your minds, and you need good ideas. Stones and bricks don't build a new world. Stones and bricks are important. So fresh picture of our model, we call it the entrepreneurship model, which you will be talking today, I think, that we start with the meaning and purpose. along with values and effectual skills and venture creation. So it started with meaning and purpose, eschatology. So this is our model, and I think it will be, which is very common to your model. And this is a quick picture of our classrooms. And so Saraswati spoke a few days ago from Darden. She was there. Professor Mia is going to come, inshallah. And so you're talking today. Omer will be talking from Toronto, Canada. Veena will be talking from London. We have another professor from Thomas Schott will be talking from Denmark. And many other are coming. This is our team: Azad, Imran, Rao, Talha, Abdullah, and the women team, Neha, Misbah, and Taskin. So that was a quick introduction to what is happening here, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us today. So we have like 60 participants, and we hope, and people are coming inshallah from Saudi Arabia, from Canada, from all over the world to listen. So over to you, brother. Dr. Professor Miles Davis.
First, I've already put
60 minutes, inshallah.
Greetings there, but I want to extend them again. I want to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Mubarak. I'm very excited to be here. My engagement with Pakistan has been extraordinary. Dr. Qureshi has been incredible to work with. Unfortunately, it does not appear that we'll be able to meet at a conference that we got together at first in Canada, the Academy of Management. Even though they have not canceled it, I'd be surprised if they did not. I also want to let you know that the paper that I first shared with Dr. Qureshi, An Islamic Perspective on Entrepreneurship, has been downloaded. You can go find it on the website, Academe website. It has been downloaded hundreds of thousands of times at this point. And I just finished, just so that you know, Dr. Qureshi, I just finished a book chapter. I just got the announcement this week where I look at the intersection between wealth and religiosity and look at it from both a Christian and an Islamic perspective. So I continue to work and look at this issue, even though I have administrative duties. This is my way of giving service. I think it's important for us to understand an Islamic perspective. First of all, let me share a bit about my background, which may be relevant to this, and then I'll say a bit more about what I mean by an Islamic perspective. I was raised in a household where my father was Muslim and my mother was Christian. And I will tell you that Islam literally saved my life. I was born into what they call in academic literature now, socially disadvantaged. I just called it poor. We didn't have a lot. But however, Islam, in its emphasis on acquiring knowledge, one of the first hadith that I ever learned from my father that says that a Muslim seeks knowledge even if he has to go as far as China. And that was really big for me because I had never been outside of a 4-block area of my neighborhood. So the idea of seeking knowledge in China just blew me away. And the other hadith that I learned early was that what a Muslim does, he seeks to perfect. And so that led me into a lifelong study of Islam, a very active involvement with the Islamic community here, and the development of my intellectual thinking around what is essential. The other part that you should know is before becoming president of Linfield, and also before becoming dean of the business school, I also was managing partner of a venture capital company. And we set up our venture capital company based upon an Islamic model. And we actually did a lot of the study about what the Grameen Bank do in order to help fund projects. And most people in the United States do not realize that the Grameen Bank was founded by a Muslim. And so, and as I began to study the Grameen Bank, even though there are arguably some things that some would argue that are not consistent with Islamic thinking, I will not get into the debate about those things. But the reality of it is a lot of the principles were. And so it caused me to wonder what was an Islamic perspective. And so my perspective is that you cannot understand Islam, what an Islamic perspective is on anything without going to the original sources. And so I spent a lot of time looking at the history of Islam and looking at the Quran and Sahih Hadith to see what does Islam say about this. And that became the model of how I set up a venture capital company using various economic theories that come out of Islam. And I mention this because one of the things that Dr. Qureshi and I have often discussed is that a lot of times those outside of the Western world in general and outside of the US in particular look to the US for its venture capital creation and ability to launch and start businesses. And I think that this is fine because there are some unique circumstances that exist in parts of the world, including the US, which can either support or hinder economic development. But building on what Dr. Qureshi was saying about effectuation, I also want to add a dimension that is that all economic transactions and entrepreneurial activities have to be rooted within a cultural context. And there are certain cultural assumptions that exist in the US which may or may not exist inside of Pakistan or inside of Saudi Arabia or inside of Oman or the United Arab Emirates. And so one of the things that I'm very clear about is that Islam is a universal model. It's a model that's designed to exist in every country, in every place in the world. And so as opposed to culturally restricted models of entrepreneurship, I prefer to focus on a universal model of entrepreneurship rooted in Islam. And the beginning of those roots for me took me to Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her. Because Khadija was a very successful merchant. It is said that when her caravans got to embark upon their summer journey from Syria or on their winter journey to Yemen, that Khadija's caravan equaled the caravans of all other traders of the Quraysh put together. So just imagine that this one woman's caravans exceed all the other Quraysh put together. And so I'm very excited when I hear Dr. Qureshi talk about a woman and women being involved in entrepreneurship, because Islam has its roots in women's entrepreneurship. Because it was Khadija who in 595, the Common Era, who needed the agent for her transaction in Syria, contacted Abu Talib ibn Abdul al-Muttalib, recommended her distant cousin, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, who had been working the caravans with his uncle Talib's family business, and he had earned the honorific that we're all familiar with, al-Sadiq. He had also earned the honorific al-Amin, the truthful, the trustworthy. And so Khadija hired, let's be clear, Khadija hired the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was then 25 years old, sending word through her kinsman, Khazima ibn Hakim, that she would pay double her usual commission. She would pay double her usual commission to hire him because of his outstanding reputation. She sent one of her servants, Masira, to assist him. Upon returning, Masira gave accounts on the honorable way that Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, had conducted his business, with the result that he brought back twice as much profit as Khadija had expected. So let's pause there. Because in that short little story, we find the foundation of Islamic entrepreneurship. So how should a Muslim entrepreneur behave? What makes an Islamic model very successful? And why was Khadija willing to pay so much for the services of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So we find that he was what? Truthful. He was trustworthy. He was honest. And he engaged in honorable behavior. Now, I need you to pause, because this is not the portrayal of entrepreneurs that we often see shown in very common Western portrayals of entrepreneurs. Because it is seen or assumed that what is being done the common expression. There's a wonderful movie that is shown in the U.S. that you might have seen, had the opportunity to see even in Pakistan. It's called The Godfather. And there's a scene in The Godfather where he's engaging in some underhanded dealings, and people wind up getting hurt and quite frankly get killed. And he uses the expression, "It's nothing personal, it's only business." Well, from an Islamic perspective, it's all personal and it's all religious, because how you interact and treat people form the foundation of your entrepreneurial behavior, which will establish your reputation to allow people to want to do business with you. So let's take a minute to look. And I know that you're in a class, and I know that there's some very intelligent people who are listening and watching this video conference, but I want to make sure that we're using the same terms the same way, because a lot of this has been developed. We talk about the term entrepreneurship. So let's be clear. Entrepreneurship was not a term that was used on the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This was not what was used. Now, they were merchants or traders. But we need to distinguish what is meant from entrepreneurship from what is meant from employment. And so entrepreneurship, what I'm going to use it in a simplified form, in a very simplified form, because you can take this many different ways, but in a very simplified form. We will focus on ownership as the basis to call one an entrepreneur. For our purposes, anyone who is a small business owner or works for himself or herself instead of others is considered an entrepreneur. Now, just out of curiosity, just to see, because I can see a number of you on my screen, there's a button at the bottom of your screen called Participants. If you go in there, you will see the ability to raise your hand. If you qualify using that definition of an entrepreneur at this point, I just want to see you raise your hand. Show me a raise of hand, and I'll show you what mine looks like in case you're wondering what it looks like.
It's conference to join. Okay,
carry on. It's okay.
It's not able to come up. So you may not, okay, oh, there it is. There, I see some hands coming up. Yes, I see 5, 6, I see 6 hands went up.
We can ask them to write on the chat box. Otherwise, it will be a chaos.
Okay, yeah.
If anybody who has a question, write on the chat box, please.
Yeah, that's okay. I see more coming up. So about the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. About a dozen of you are actually engaged. Well, I think it's important for you to think about this. So this is the framework that I'm going to be using for the rest of our time together to talk about what is meant by entrepreneurship. And then I'm going to overlay that with an Islamic view, inshallah, of what entrepreneurship is. And then I'm going to ask you to hold your questions, because I will give you time at the end to ask all the questions. And I'm assuming that someone on the staff of Dr. Qureshi's will moderate those questions.
Yes, so, our team member Taskin will do that. Yes, please.
Alhamdulillah. So let's be clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the universe for the benefit of all human beings. Allah has made the resources of this earth available to man, who has responsibility to make use of them, to mold them, and to transform them according to his needs. So humans are responsible for pursuing opportunities to meet their needs. In fact, it could be argued that the Islamic worldview places entrepreneurship as preferred economic behavior for Muslims. And so before even going to the quotes I'm going to share with you about what it says in the Quran about this, I want you to go back to the story that I first told you about Khadijah hiring the Prophet Muhammad. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not do anything by accident. And so it was part of a divine plan that he was hired to represent her, because that was the root of how Islam was able to be promulgated because when you are an entrepreneur, when you are in charge of your life, you are not as subjected to the whims and desires of somebody who employs you. And so this is a big issue inside the United States. And so when I'm talking with Muslims who work for organizations and they say, oh, Dr. Davis, it's so difficult for me to make salat. It's so difficult for me to attend Juma. It's so difficult for me to fast during the month of Ramadan. And I say, do you have skills that will allow you to be in control? And can you start your own business, because that gives you freedom, just as it gave the Prophet Muhammad freedom to do what he did. So in the Quran, there are clear references to the work one does and the wealth or bounty that is expected to seek. So in Surah Al-Baqarah, the English translation, if you want to look and check this in Urdu or Arabic, I know that there are different people from different countries on the line, on the conference call. Look at Surah Al-Baqarah, verse ayat 36, where it says, on earth will be your dwelling place and your means for livelihood for a time. Also in Surah Tanisa, on the 32nd ayat, it says, to men is allotted what they earned, and to women what they earned. But ask the law of his bounty, for law has full knowledge of all things. In Surah Al-Alaf, in the 10th ayat, it is we, referring to Allah, who have placed you with authority on earth and provided you there with means for the fulfillment of your life. And then Surah Al-Taba, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but I have a whole list of these ayats, and I'll be happy if you want them to send to Dr. Qureshi so you can see, and say work. And the word that is used in Arabic is amalu. Say work, soon will Allah observe your work. And so these verses and more that I have here make it clear that Muslims are expected to work for a living, and that work is seen as an activity that is consistent with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will and his moral value. The verses that I referenced clearly state that Allah created the night so that one can rest in order to seek Allah's bounty during the day. Additionally, the creation of wealth is seen as Allah's bounty, grace, and goodness. Interestingly, the Quran also states that man can have nothing but what he strives for. And so this theme runs through the Quran with both spiritual and secular implications, because a person is expected to work for economic success in this life. In fact, those who beg or engage in other parasitic lifestyles without extenuating circumstances are roundly chastised in the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad said, to not work when one is able is seen to be in defiance of Allah's law, and the resulting poverty from not working is seen to lead one to kufr. Because it is through this that we begin to say that we depend upon people as opposed to ourselves. And so in addition to the disapproval of not working, Islam teaches the dignity of engaging in labor to support oneself. And I want you to listen to this Sahih Bukhari hadith, because it gets to the heart of an Islam perspective on entrepreneurship and why I'm so happy so many of you are on this call. I see 93 of you are on this video conference, alhamdulillah, because if you can get this, you can transform your world. Prophet Muhammad said, it is better for any one of you to take a rope and cut the wood from the forest and carry it over his back and sell it as a means of earning a living, rather than to ask a person for something that person may give him or not. This is at the heart of it, is that it is better to pursue an opportunity, entrepreneurship. It is better to pursue an opportunity to provide for oneself, regardless of the resources present under one's control, then depend upon someone to provide them for you. In addition, for providing for oneself, entrepreneurial behavior is meant to benefit the person and providing means to lead a more virtuous life and benefit the community and help to support good works. For instance, giving to charity to those in need or helping to build a masjid. Where does that money come from? It has to come from people who are working or people who are launching businesses, people who are responsible. I was so fortunate when I was there. And please forgive me, I don't remember the name of the hospital off the top of my head, Dr. Qureshi, but that the Muslim families provide healthcare free of charge. Healthcare free of charge. That is only possible if there are people contributing to that thing to make it happen. The behavior of a Muslim entrepreneur has to be one that respects the fundamental values of Islamic Sharia, which balances the values of society and individuals. Quite frankly, we are experiencing this in both the US and Pakistan and around the world right now, balance the values of the interest of society and individuals, because yes, some of us are under house arrest, but why are we under house arrest? We're under house arrest to protect the most vulnerable populations. And this is what Islam tries to do in Islamic entrepreneurial behavior. So we have to engage in fairness, non-exploitation of the poor, moral responsibility, accountability, and equity in financial dealings. This is why riba is forbidden, but this is why a Muslim entrepreneur behaves differently. The pursuit of entrepreneurial success is not to be performed as a means of self-aggrandizement or elating yourself, but is to be engaged in if it is to benefit you in this lifetime, in the next, as a spiritual act. It's a spiritual act. Entrepreneurship is a spiritual act in communion with those who help one to be successful. And this includes the community at large. Individuals are seen as the stewards, amanas. Stewards are the gifts given to them by Allah. Management of that stewardship extends beyond financial success and into helping society be better, because it is through entrepreneurship and enforcing the principles of Islamic entrepreneurship that we help society be better. And I'm going to close my comments with a quote from Surah Al-Qasas, ayat 77. It says, "But seek with the wealth which Allah has bestowed on thee the home of the hereafter, nor forget thy portion in this world, but do thou good, as Allah has been good to thee. And seek not mischief in the land, for Allah loves not those who does mischief." Sadaqallahu al-Azim, la ilaha illallah. So at that, I'm going to stop my commentary. I know it doesn't sound like a business lecture, but to me, there is no distinction in my mind about how I conduct business in my life in Islam. I want to remind you that Islam was spread not through the propaganda that is often spread in the West through jihad. Islam was spread through trade and merchants, through entrepreneurial behavior. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in the Quran that I created for you the best to be the best of people. That includes in our business endeavors that we change people's minds and their hearts and their perception of Islam when they see us as being successful. And I'll just end on a personal note. Every day when I walk on campus, I presently have 2,200 students. I have 506 employees. I realize that what I am doing has nothing to do with me. And it's the same way I thought as an entrepreneur, is that if people saw that there was a better way to do things, if we set a better example, that we change society. And so every time I go out my door, I influence the perception of Islam. So do you as business people and entrepreneurs. How you handle business and what you do influences the perception of Islam. And I'll stop there and allow you questions. Somebody want to moderate them, or you just want me to read them?
Them, I think, if possible, like you can see if it's readable and if you can directly look at it as well.
Okay. So there's a question that I'm not sure how intuition, or what we say, this sixth sense will affect the decision to go on to hold. Well, you know, I think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us all sorts of things, and some people have the ability to perceive opportunities. So at the heart of entrepreneurship is opportunity recognition. And so whether you call it the sixth sense or something else, the ability to see what needs to be done in your society will create opportunities for you. So when I was there was a young man that had set up a snack stand outside of IBA as part of his project there. There was a need for refreshment. This is simple stuff. I also got a chance to visit a leather factory, a leather manufacturer while I was there, subhanAllah. And so here was a gentleman that started from selling leather out the back of his bicycle. And he found that there were more people in need, and Pakistan had a wonderful market. And same thing with carpets. There are all sorts of ways to go into business. So you find those opportunities. Or the inner feeling, is that the same? Oh, that's the same person, inner feeling, yeah. So that's the same question. We've been pushed to digitalization a decade or half earlier by the current pandemic. To what extent digitized world could bridge ethical investment? That's a very interesting question because it, like all things, there's opportunity and there are challenges that are a result of what we're seeing. And so for one thing, I always get a little nervous when I'm doing these Zoom conferences because there are some people who have decided that they're going to devote their time and energy into doing bad things on Zoom conferences. And so while there's opportunity for good, there's opportunity for bad. Ethical investment is not the result of a process. Ethical investment is the result of the change of people. What is inside your heart? And so I want to leave you with something that is important, because it doesn't matter whether it's digital or direct in person. You can never do a good deal with a bad person. You just can't do it. And so that does not matter the format. Most of the business models available at the moment are based on Western business models that care for interests. This also includes raising capital. When you have limited resources, require capital starting. I'm sorry, coming in so fast, I lost. Require capital to start a business. What options do you propose one pursues? This is a good one. And I spent a lot of time looking at this because there are a number of very important differences. And please, do not hear what I say as a criticism of anyone. That is not my role. I'm just going to offer a reality and insight into the perspective. Part of why the entrepreneurial models work in the US, and it's not all based upon interest, it's based upon a return, and trade is not the same as interest, because our venture capital company did not do it based upon trade. We built it upon Islamic concepts, which, if you want me to go into much more detail about how venture capital operates on an Islamic construct, I'll do that at another time. Unfortunately, I can't do that today if Dr. Qureshi wants to come back. But here's what I would encourage you to do, is understand that why the models work in the West is because there's rule of law. And what is meant by that is that it does not matter whether your name is Khan or Qureshi or Rahman or Davis, that you are going to be treated the same underneath the law with enforceable contracts. That does not work in societies where people are treated differently because of family ties. And I'll just stop there because I don't want to get too personal. I want to go into some other questions and try to get to these last couple, because I know we're running up against time. What advice you give to those starting out, something you learned from personal experience? I will tell you a couple of things that I learned from personal experience. Be prepared to fail. It's not personal. You know, the first time you go out there and try something, it's not going to take off. You have to be resilient and you have to have faith. But you will find the need. You also have to be adaptable. The first time you go out there and try something, it's not going to work correctly, or you're going to have to adapt it to the circumstances in which you find yourself in. You have to believe in yourself and in the product because there's going to be everybody everywhere who tell you no, that this can't be done. I've heard this all my life. In Islam, you have to refund any product, even if it is demanded on business basis, just not wanting it anymore. How can one refund it? They don't have a capital to return it. I'd be interested to see where you say that's Islam. I would interested the person, Sufyan, please provide a Quranic or Sahih hadith reference for that you have to refund any product, even if it's demanded on basis of just not wanting it anymore. That would seem inconsistent with Islamic teachings about honesty and trustworthiness. So a person who is engaged in corrupt behavior, then I would be concerned about that. However, I will tell you that there are good business models that allow people to engage, and it's not refund. You can also go to an exchange. You can exchange a defective product. Matter of fact, I just had this happen in dealing with a entrepreneur who has an interest in business, and he sent me his first product that was defective. He immediately sent me another one that wasn't defective. That should be addressed. How to choose team and entrepreneurship, reliable and trustworthy team who stand by within difficult situations. You need to make sure that you're getting the best people possible based upon both their qualifications and their character. So what is the character that you're bringing into your organization? Because even if they have the skills, if they do not have good character, you do not want to work with them. And you can investigate their character through all sorts of means. Matter of fact, so part of my venture, I'll just share this with you a little bit. Part of my venture capital model is that in order to receive funding from us and us to work with you, you had to provide references from your house of worship. Didn't matter whether you're a Christian, Jew, or Muslim. You had to be a person who's willing to put their reputation on their line. And so seek out and explore the reputation and what are the people known for. And how do we tackle the market demand? For example, we enter the market for the first time. There are already giants that are more experienced. This is a good one because this question deals with how do you enter into a market when there are already big market players? Well, what's the differentiation of your product? What's the differentiation of your service? And can you act more nimbly than the big companies? Big companies are hard to turn around. And yes, you know, the worst case scenario is that they said they want to buy your product because they want to keep it out of sight, but you have the potential to engage in innovation. I asked you to think about the fact that all the big companies that you know weren't small companies. Apple didn't start out as Apple. You know, Microsoft didn't start out as Microsoft. These things all started with an ideal. Heck, even IBA Karachi wasn't this big, magnificent thing that it had grown to. It started out small. And so you have a better ideal and a better approach that changes it. And the last one that I will take.
There's one question, Miles, my friend from Lahore is asking, what is the Islamic guidelines on profit? How much can one earn from a manufacturer? How much profit? Is there any guidelines? Yes.
MashaAllah. This is a good question. There is no limit on the profit. The question becomes, what do you do with your profits? And so so we all know that there is zakat, which is 2.5% of what you have left over. But so, matter of fact, I just finished telling Dr. Qureshi, I just finished a book chapter on this. Making money is not incompatible with Islam at all. You're encouraged to make money. The question becomes, what do you do with your money? Do you use your money just to go, you know, build and buy gold toilet seats? I wish that was a joke, but the present occupant of the White House in the United States, that's part of what he did with his money. You know, that's not what you do with money. The money becomes, you provide, you're allowed to have some of the luxuries in life. There's nothing wrong with having a nice house or even having a nice car, but are you benefiting the community? Are you doing something because it is the community that is purchasing your products, goods, or services? And so what are you doing to pay back and make the society better for all? Dr. Qureshi, any other questions you want me to ask?
Yes, exactly. Another question is coming
I'm sorry,
from Islam.
because somebody said that they like the Pakistani dress on me, mashallah.
Yes. My friend from Islamabad, Asim, is asking that are there any successful Muslim startups which have expanded globally? Are you aware of that? I know something in India, ID Fresh is happening. they're doing something. They say that our reason of doing business is to please God.
Yeah.
This is the
So,
statement. Actually.
yeah. So I will share with you again, and I'm not going to get into debating who is Muslim or who isn't Muslim, or what determines that. But how many, are you familiar with the Gote group out of Nigeria, Africa? He is the wealthiest man on the African continent from his family. He is a Muslim. At least he professes to be Muslim. So again, a law will decide who is and who isn't. This is not my place. And so they in the Dagote group is an international corporation. So if you want to go Google that if you're not familiar with him, it's DAGOTE.
Great. There's a friend, Anas, he's asking that can we really teach entrepreneurship? Isn't it
Yes. Yes.
Can we teach?
Sorry. I get excited about this.
Well?
Yes. I get excited about this, mashallah. I get excited about this. So asking me this question is the same as people asking me, can you teach music? So let's be clear. If you're tone deaf, you'll never be a great musician. But if you can hear tones and you have some dexterity or are able to do these things, you can go to a school and learn to be a better musician. Is this not true? Of course it is. If you have the ability, because I can guarantee, just because you're on this call, because you could have been doing anything else this evening, wherever you are, that you come up with at least one ideal every year. Some of you do it every week. That would make a business if you put the time and energy into it. And learning how to do that is what you can learn at a program like IBA, Kavachi, and what they're doing, is that they're giving you the tools. Now, just like the musician, if you don't practice, it doesn't matter what you're taught. But if you take the tools that IBA is giving you and put them into practice, you can make yourself better. You can improve. And even if you fail once, twice, I think I've done it at least 5 times with different businesses, you still learn and continue to move forward and have the things that will allow you to be successful as an entrepreneur, inshallah.
Great. So I would like to welcome Professor Mia. He's listening to you from New York. We have Kevin Mulcahy. He's listening to you from Boston. So from the West Coast.
Greetings.
All over. So I would like to welcome them as well. Another question is coming from Aruba Abasi. She says that what is going to happen after the COVID-19? Do you think what kind of products or services could emerge or new things coming up? Any idea? What are you seeing? Something?
So I did remind you people that I am a Muslim, yes? And so Allah teaches us that only the jinn have knowledge of the unseen. I have no knowledge of the unseen, and that's a gift given to the prophets. I don't have a crystal ball here. What I do have is faith. And I know that we have been here before. We have seen pandemics. We have seen destruction of society. Matter of fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us in the Quran that he uses these things for purposes. I don't know what the purpose is. I don't claim to have divine knowledge. That these things are available to us to change. But you can see, like for instance, higher education, matter of fact, the founders of Zoom, this platform we're using, they weren't ready for COVID-19. Now they're going to have to change their whole business model because they weren't designed to handle this massive use of the platform. There are all sorts of things that delivery services for food. There are all sorts of things that are going to come about that the world is going to fundamentally change. And you're going to find opportunities to engage in that world. Maybe you make interesting what I have, and I'm going to give you one idea for those who are particularly interested who are good at graphics design. So you see in back of me, this is my home office. You know what I love to have in back of me? Some type of Islamic art. Mm-hmm. So can you design some Islamic art that you can use as a Zoom background? I mean, there are all sorts of opportunities. I want to address something that was sent to me as a private message, Dr. Qureshi, and I want to address, I won't mention the person's name because they just sent it as a private message, but I think this is important to address because I have to address this every day. It says, how do we teach the values of Islamic entrepreneurship to a non-Muslim entrepreneur? Because you don't have to lead with, this is from the Quran, this is from the Hadith, this is Sharia. You lead with the example.
Yes.
You engage in honesty. You engage in trustworthy. You matter of fact, so let me tell you some of my mentors, and some of my mentors were not Muslims. So there was a deal that was struck between two parties, and the person came back to my mentor and said, oh man, this is a great deal. Look what we did for the company. I really took that person. And my mentor said, go back. And I said, what do you mean go back? I said, go back. Go back so that both parties feel good about the deal. You don't have to quote Quran. You don't have to deal with equitable systems. You're showing by the example of the life that you lead. Your life should be the Quran and the Hadith. Your life should be Islam. So when people see you, they ask you, why do you behave this way? You know, why are you not a dictator? You don't have to tell them that we're supposed to conduct our affairs by shore. That's what it's taught in Islam. We just set a better example. I hope that answers that question.
Great, wonderful. So do our any guests from London? Bina is from London, and Professor Mia, Kevin from Boston. If you have any comments, we could prefer our international friends as well.
Yeah, this is Kevin here.
Kevin, yes, Kevin is a Babson faculty member. Yes, Kevin, please come in.
I think I know Kevin.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
We want to see your picture, Kevin, with the river behind.
I know Kevin. I'm sure. Kevin, don't we know each other?
Well, we don't. We might have been introduced, but we've not spoken one-to-one yet. Okay. But I'm leaving open the possibility that we will know each other from now on.
Great.
So this notion of entrepreneurship as solving for unmet needs. And I like the way you distinguished, it's not the profit, it's what you do with the profit or the proceeds. But if you bring it back to unmet needs and we think about commercial entrepreneurship versus social entrepreneurship, can you just talk about this notion of social entrepreneurship and the role of social entrepreneurship in the teachings of Islam?
So I will actually share this with you, and then I'm aware, because these are terms that we use in academic circles. Islam makes no distinction between commercial and social entrepreneurship, because all entrepreneurial behaviors should have a social good that we should be able to benefit. And so, matter of fact, if you dig deep into Islamic economic theory, there's even a blueprint for the type of businesses that need to be set up in communities when they first start. And this goes to the heart of what you're asking, Kevin. So for instance, you know, if a Muslim has to eat halal food, it recommends that when you set up a business and you're in an environment that doesn't have that, that's what you do. If you need to dress a certain way, that you provide these types of services. If there are need for things, so there's a blueprint. So there's not a distinction between the two as we think about this normally within a Western context. That the commercial enterprise itself is part of serving the community in the community's unmet need. And so let's say that we look at what is a stereotypical entrepreneurial behavior where somebody goes and digs wells and wants to provide water. Well, it's still business. It's serving a social good. Now, Kevin, I'm assuming that you're familiar with B corporations.
Yes.
Yeah. So Oregon has one of the largest clustering of B Corps in the United States, and whether they are a bank or whether they are an ice cream parlor, they can be set up as a B corporation. For those who are not familiar with the concept of B corporations are companies that state in their bylaws, this is a very simplified explanation, please forgive me, that they are going to be serving some type of social good as as Kevin just pointed out.
I think of the B as standing for benefit, like it's a
benefit, exactly,
it has
yeah,
a benefit beyond profit. To,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would offer from a purely Islamic perspective, Kevin, that all Islamic businesses should be a B corporation. They should benefit the society as a whole.
Wonderful, great explanation. Professor Miyasab is a professor at New York. He will be our guest speaker in the next sessions. Miyasab, would you like to say something, sir? Professor Mia is almost #1 in incubation. A lot of impact factor research being taken up. So Miyasab, are you there? Okay. So maybe, so any question, any else from Bina ul Haq from London and your friend, they're there. Dr. Omer from Toronto, are you there?
Yes, I am. Assalamu alaikum. So you probably will hear some background noises. My little one, my 4-year-old, she's just roaming around. And she might even come and say hi to everyone. Say salam. Say assalamu alaikum.
Oh, mashallah.
So I was just trying to
Dr.
stay quiet and mute myself and not be an interference here, but she's here.
Okay.
It's okay.
So Omer is working on the stakeholder theory, and he's at University of Toronto. And so any comment, any question, Omer?
So, well, I'm from the University of Waterloo, which is very close to Toronto. So I'm doing research in management of technology, and I'm actually looking at how these tech organizations, when they're at a startup stage, and when they move from startup to growth stage and from growth to mature stage, how would they respond to various different stakeholders or different models that we have? So corporate social responsibility is one of the models. We have humanistic management. There are so many spin-offs nowadays that we hear about. And essentially all of them are pointing towards that money is not the only identifier. Money is not the only, bottom line here. So there's so much rather than just money. So I'm interested in that. I've started looking at another area, which is cybersecurity. And I'm trying to bring in the stakeholder theoretic views into that. Because right now what we're doing is all cyber. All of our identities are online. So we have to be mindful that how we can educate our people, how we can educate our stakeholders, and how different stakeholders, these companies can, what can they do to make it more secure for people? So this is my area of interest, and I'm doing research in this area, and I do teach as well. So I'm also a faculty member here, and I get to teach undergrads and grad engineering students at Waterloo. So yeah, that's what I do.
So Umar, please get my contact information from Dr. Qureshi. I'll send you my paper on stakeholder theory, and it does a contrast that looks at the other popular theory about efficient markets and some other things. So,
Right.
So please, I'll be happy to share that with you as you explore that. There are two other things that have come up that I want to address. When people say that, how do you market in Islam without lying? You tell the truth about your product. You know, you tell what does your product do, what doesn't it do. A matter of fact, the European Union has actually banned deceptive advertising, and so if you have to have a clear differentiation. What do you do? What don't you do? I don't think that you ever have to lie to gain customers. And somebody asked me would I speak a bit about women entrepreneurship and context of Islam. And again, I'm very sensitive that there are various cultural interpretations that come up in regards to this. But all I can say is that that during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad SAW and his marriage to Khadijah, he never condemned or spoke against or said anything negative about her business. In fact, I want to take you back to that point that she hired him. And Allahu Alam.
MashaAllah, great. So any other question? Professor Mia, you are there?
Hello?
Yes, Mia Saab.
Shahid?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah, my connection is bad, and I'm also kind of involved in some other meetings here. I just wanted to say salam to Miles Davis,
Great.
and and I'm glad he's there, and I just can't hear properly. I don't know what the voice situation is.
Okay. So,
Okay.
Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakumullah khair and see
Assalamu
you.
alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Yes.
So great.
Bye.
Any other question, my friends? We really appreciate all our people. Bina Haq from London is asking, do we pay for corporate social responsibility from zakat money in Islamic entrepreneurship, or is it separate funds set aside for it?
So this is interesting. So as you know, since you're asking this question, I'm going to assume that you understand the foundations of zakat. And so zakat is placed upon an individual's wealth. Now, it all depends on how the laws are set up. And this is where it gets tricky. So in the United States, once you are incorporated, the corporation has a lot of the rights, duties, and responsibilities of an individual. Corporations can vote, they can hold property. These are things that are normally restricted to an individual. So within the context of your country, you would have to explore that. So there's a difference also between a C Corp and an S Corp and pass-through revenue. And if I'm using terms that you're not familiar with, don't worry about it. It just has to refer to the different ways in which you can structure your business. So the zakat itself is placed upon the individual. However, if you can do more out of the benefit of your company, why not? You know, one of my favorite surahs in the Quran is Surah Al-Rahman. And it's because it has that repetitive phrase, which favor of your Lord will you deny? And so the ideal of you being able to use your resources beyond 2.5%, it doesn't say that you can't give more. It only says that this is what you're required to do. And then you can ask yourself, what favor of your Lord will you deny by continuing to do good to help and support others?
Thank you.
Thank you, Bina. So Bina will be talking about strategy in the next few sessions. And Bina, Robert is here as well today.
Yes, sir, Robert is online as well. He's attending the conference call along hearing Dr. Miles as well. And the interesting fact is his uncle has been educated from one of the institution like Dr. Miles, and his father has been his father did his master's from the same university in Washington as Dr. Miles as well.
George Washington University, mashallah.
Yeah, my father went to George Washington. My uncle went to Bowie State. I saw Bowie State on your.
No, we can have a reunion here. Get off. When we're over, we'll just have a reunion. We'll discuss it.
Exactly.
So Robert will be talking in the next few days on artificial intelligence to the Pakistani community. So these are people from London. So what a great. So one professor is asking from Islamabad. The last question, Professor Miles, on this. Professor Dr. Idris is asking. His comment actually. He's saying that one way of promoting Islamic entrepreneurship could be tell that the entrepreneurs adopted Islamic principles are successful, like the return of goods, like telling the defects, telling truth. So he's saying that you should do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So Robert,
I would agree with that. And so I will tell you that I've also did a paper that I wrote that looks at the different religions' perspective on leadership and their approach. And so I will share this with you, that one of the things that I found in talking with people who are devout Muslims, people who are devout Christians, people who are devout Jews, that their business principles don't deviate. Their business principles are the same. Matter of fact, I did a study of this where I talked with Chick-fil-A, which is a fast food restaurant here, and Dr. Yaqub Mirza, who founded the Mana Mutual Fund, and Annie Annie's, and I've talked to people, all these different people, because they believe in the same principles. Matter of fact, if you're if this Ramadan, if you're reading a juz of the Quran each day, which is my practice on Ramadan, there was several ayats in the verses today, Surah Al-Imran, that talked about that people of faith, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a reward for them. It doesn't matter what their faith is if they're practicing the right things. And so the practice of trustworthiness, honesty, and integrity isn't just incorporated in what we have come to call Islam, because you also have to understand fundamentally that Islam does not see itself as a new religion. Islam sees itself as a continuation of all the religions from Abraham forward. So if you understand that, it makes it easy to understand why the behavior of people of faith is relatively consistent, no matter what their faith tradition is.
One participant from Karachi is asking, Miles, do you have another name? Do you have an Islamic name? So
I want to be clear about this, because yeah, a lot, and I don't go into a lot of my background and my studies, and I had a very profound conversation. So I will mention this. So in a conversation with the Mufti of the great mosque in Saudi Arabia, and in Medina in particular, and we had this conversation about names. There are no Muslim names. I know I'm being controversial here, stay with me. He says there are Arab names, there are Pakistani names. He says, but any name that is not offensive is a good name. And so Miles Davis was my name, and it honors my father. In fact, what the Mufti told me, he says, by changing your name, you will be dishonoring your father who gave you that name. There's nothing wrong with your name. And then I'll have to say this, and Kevin, you can't out me on this. It allows me to be a stealth Muslim. And so when I'm around people talking about Islam and they don't see Abdullah or Abdul Rahman, or they say, Miles Davis, you know, and so I get to hear what people say and what they think. And I get a chance to engage in conversations, you know, without them realizing, and allows you to have impact. And that's what the Mufti taught me. He says, Miles, be who you are. He says, operate within the world in which you have. Now, having said all that, if you were to go look from our fathers, you will see Abdul Salam ibn Rashid that extends it. But after the conversation with the Mufti, I just became Miles Davis.
Great, wonderful. So I think the last question from my side, and then we're really thankful to you, Miles, for your time. The last question is, can we use entrepreneurship, and especially faith-based entrepreneurship, to promote love and peace in the world? Bringing people together. Do you think as a tool, as a mindset, can it help people to bring together?
So this is important because, again, I always refer to the root of things, and as you should go to sources and not just take what somebody says. And I encourage you to look at what I've said and verify if it's true. You should never just take somebody's word for something. You should investigate this. So let me address this from this perspective. Salam, Saad Lam Meen, is the kernel of the word Islam and Salam. They bring about peace, and it's through peace that we often find love. It is through submission, also Islam, that we find peace and love. And so I would say that by promoting things that encourage people to engage in peace from an Arabic root perspective, we're also promoting love. We cannot have peace. So yes, it does say in the Quran, it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu wattaqullah. So it does say those who fear Allah. But it also says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu habiballah, to those who love Allah. And so loving of God teaches us to behave in a certain way. There's so many references in the Quran and Hadith about the Prophet's loving behavior, about what we're supposed to do and treat our neighbors. So the same should be true in business. And I'll just end on this personal note, and Allah knows best. I am here. Remember, I said I'm at an institution that is not Muslim. I think we just had this year, we had a couple of Muslim students who admitted. to the institution because I'm here and working with the Muslim Educational Trust, an organization here. But people are coming because they see something different in what I'm doing. Let me be clear, I'm not talking about me. The basis of my behavior and how I act and interact with people is based upon my understanding of Islam. And so Islam tells you, says, what does it say? I mean, these things, these are not just words that we read. When it says speak to a people in a language in which they understand in the Quran, what does that mean? It means to speak to people so that they understand you. Engage people. It says overlook faults. These are not just things written in a book from 1,500 years ago. These are practical lessons for our life. So it is with our entrepreneurial models. Is that why can we not be trustworthy, honest, faithful? Why can we not? We may not be Al-Amin, but we can be Abdul Al-Amin. We cannot be, the merciful. We cannot be Al-Rahman Ar-Rahim, but we can Abdul Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. And that should apply within the context of our business transactions. We don't walk into a boardroom and take out our heart and put it aside. Am I making any sense to anybody but me? Is that behavior that will change the world if we practiced it, not talked about it, not read about it, not try to change, but if we practice a better way for people to follow. Allahu Akbar.
So what a great closure, and what a great, we just recite a verse, and وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Those who increase piety, become more clean, they will find new opportunities. God will provide new opportunities for them and open new avenues for them. So this is the model which we are working at IBA Karachi. We call it the Entrepreneurship Plus model. And it is based on purpose and meaning and service, and with a belief that the resources are with the abundance mindset, with the humanistic mindset, as Dr. Umar said, and the stakeholder perspective. So all this together, I'm thankful on behalf of IBA Karachi, our management, our team members, Taskeen, Abdullah, and a lot of people who are working to make it successful. And I'm thankful to a lot of people from all over the country. And this video will be recorded, Professor Miles, a bit cleaned and sent all over to the 4,000 participants. So with this, I would like to beg say goodbye, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep all of us protected and make us, all of us, a source of rahmat and blessing for the whole humanity. We are one family. We are one family. We are all cousins. This is what I learned in the past 6 years, that Miles is my cousin, and Kevin is my cousin, and Veena is my cousin. So I have Robert is my cousin. So I have cousins all over the world. So I have to learn from them. I have to love them and respect them. So that's it. Thank you very much, Miles. Say regards to your friends, your family, and happy Ramadan and happy days in the next. So thank you, Toronto. Thank you, New York, Boston, Peshawar, Lahore, Islamabad, Karachi, Gujranwala, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you, sir. Thank you. We will be announcing other sessions. Bina Lak will be coming, Robert will be coming from Denmark, Thomas Schott will be coming from Bangkok. Professor, who's from Bangkok?
Professor Hans.
Hans will be coming, and so if you can recommend other people as well, it's a great learning for like 3,000-4,000 people. So 3,000-4,000 people are working on this model in Ramadan. So thank you very much, and may Allah bless all of you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum.